Welcome. Good afternoon, Club 17. We've got a great program today. And you know, during this time, as we've all been adjusting to COVID-19, we've made adjustments, obviously, in our meetings. And we've been saying the Pledge of Allegiance, which is great. But our tradition is more to sing the Star Spangled Banner. We're just not doing any singing now, and it's not because of Russell's voice or anything else. But what we're going to do is hear a beautiful rendition of the Star Spangled Banner today. So let's proceed. So now next we're going to have the invocation led by Molly Rydell.
Tough act to follow, right? I've never had to follow Whitney Houston before. Good afternoon, everyone. Please join me in prayer. Almighty Father, as Rotarians, we are blessed with lives of relative luxury and opportunities that are unknown to many. Please open our hearts to those in need and help us to share financially with others. Let us also share our intangible riches of knowledge, leadership, and creativity to make our community and our world a better place, filled with love, equality, and peace. Bless those peoples around the world who are touched by our works, that they too can enjoy a fulfilling life with health, companionship, and tranquility. We thank you for this day and all its blessings. Thank you for this wonderful lunch and for our speaker, Mr. Eddie Koen, who so generously carved out time in his busy schedule to be with us here today. Almighty Father, please bless this meeting and all those present, as well as the lives of all those that we encounter through our works. Amen. And now let's recite the four-way test of the things we think, say, and do. Is it the truth? Is it fair to all concerned? Will it build goodwill and better friendships? Will it be beneficial to all concerned? Thank you.
Yep. Please be seated. Thank you, Molly. And now Tim Hirschner is going to introduce our guests.
Thank you, President Brett. Today we're blessed to have a guest of Eddie Koen, his COO of the Urban League, Cinnamon Pelly. Take a stand.
So we have a few announcements today. And first of all, we'll start with club member birthdays. August 4th, Hans Popke. August 5th, Ed Mathis. Today, Lori Quinlivan and Bob Wilson. I think Lori's here. And August 7th, Cheryl Parker. And August 10th, David Edwards and Don Nyer. So let's give them a happy birthday applause. So something you may have seen today when you came to the meeting is we've got a number of service projects that are going on actually this month and next month. Bill Stilley, who heads up Hands-On Service, has put up a poster listing those. I think there's 6 different opportunities actually, and they're sign-up sheets. They're right in the lobby, so take a look, sign up for whatever, one or more. I think it's great. We have some real opportunities to be of service to the community in various ways. And just a reminder, we've got our Rotary Club picnic Saturday, August 22nd, and it will start at Camp Allen. We'll have a group leaving for a card rally at 10 a.m. from Camp Allen going through Clermont County. Various stops. It'll be a poker event in the sense you get 1 card per stop. And as you collect your hand of cards, you go back to Camp Allen at 3:30, and we'll have an ice cream social. And we'll all see who has the best winning hand, and they'll get an Amazon gift card. So be a lot of fun. If you don't want to be part of the car rally, just come to Camp Allen at 3:30 for ice cream social. And if you have any questions, our chairs of that event are Owen Rassman, Chris Adams, and Angie Ferguson. Just feel free to ask. And as a reminder, the last day for sign-ups to RSVP is a week from tomorrow, so please make sure to get your sign-ups in. We do have members in the news, and our thoughts and prayers go out to Mike and Linda LaValle at the loss of Mike's mother, Dorothy, who passed away yesterday at the age of 92 after having been admitted to the hospital last month. So our condolences to them. And now I'd like to introduce our speaker. We're pleased today to have Eddie Koen. He is the president and CEO of the Urban League of Greater Southwestern Ohio. And Eddie has been in that role since September of 2019. He's got a really strong background in community service and public service. For those who don't know, the Urban League here actually was combined in 2013. The Dayton Urban League and the Urban League of Greater Cincinnati were combined into one Urban League of Greater Southwestern Ohio. And Alandis Powell, who's the chairwoman of the Urban League of Greater Southwestern Ohio, has welcomed Eddie into that role as he arrived with these words. Eddie's business acumen, his passion for education, equity, and criminal justice reform, along with key skills in conflict resolution, donor relations, and understanding of grassroots strategies, made him an ideal fit for our organization. So before moving to Cincinnati, Eddie had been the Chief Impact Officer of the United Way of Denver, and he's a Chicago native, but he's got some roots in Alabama. He has been a managing partner for Seed IM Ventures, which is a private equity firm in Washington, D.C., that focuses on crowd investments and also acquires and advises firms that are managed by or benefit underserved populations. He was also Chief of Staff for the Denver Public Schools and a state policy advisor for HCM Strategists, and the founding Regional Executive Director for Denver-based College Track, a multi-state nonprofit organization. And in addition to all of that, as though that wasn't enough, Eddie also has served on the Board of Governors of the National Bar Association and the Board of Directors for the Urban League of Metro Denver. And Eddie and his family are now residents of Kenwood. And Eddie, welcome to Cincinnati and welcome to the Rotary Club. We're glad to have you here today. Thank you.
All right, good afternoon. Good afternoon. We have to wake up. I'm just happy to get out of the house, you know. So when I got this invitation, I said, absolutely, please save me. I have a 1-year-old and a 4-year-old at home. So Anytime I can get out of the house, I'm trying to leave. So thank you. You have no idea what you have done for me today, just to get out of the house. And even the Rotary Club here is a little different. I came here from Denver, so we meet in the in the woods and in the open. It's very hippie-ish, the Rotary Club there. So this is a nice change of scenery here, to say the least. But again, Eddie Koen, been here for a fresh 10 months now, moving here. And so I am a person who believes in, I can talk about the Urban League and what we've done and our outcomes and our different programs, but fundamentally I'm a person who believes that every person is worthy of love, right? Everyone is worthy of kindness, of compassion, of having options and a chance, right? And so that story really didn't start organically or some epiphany. It really started from Chicago. So I grew up on the south side of Chicago. It's a place that is filled with beauty and pain and complexities and all of the things that are intertwined in inner cities. So I'm the first high school graduate in my family. But interestingly enough, I didn't graduate high school easily. Actually dropped out of high school in Chicago, went to Lindblom High School, started my first year, dropped out. My parents had a great idea. They said, we can't really control this kid, he's 14 years old. What would any rational parent do? They picked up and moved me to Huntsville, Alabama. Yeah, thanks, Mom. But Huntsville, Alabama was really what I needed in life. Moved there, got my life together, finished high school in 5 years, but the 5th year of my high school journey, I ended up becoming a teen parent. And a teen parent back in those days, it was very stigmatizing. There's a lot of consciousness around not teen shaming and embracing parents. So it was a very, very taboo thing to talk about. And I remember, of course, my parents were upset. They made an announcement over the school of like, Eddie Koen, come to the front desk, your kid is being born. And so there was just public shaming. I'll never forget, I always tell this story about and I promise this will relate to the Urban League. Where's this guy's going, right? There's this guy's name was Mr. Sanford. He was about 6'2", tall guy, deep blue eyes, wore pocket protectors. He taught math in my high school. Mr. Sanford heard that I was having this kid, and I remember being in the hallway one day, and he said, Mr. Koen. So I tried to ignore him because he was very strict in his demeanor, and every time he interacted with kids. So I kept walking. He says again, Mr. Koen. I ignore him, just keep walking. He said, Mr. Koen, I know you hear me. Turn around. So I go up to Mr. Sanford. He says, come closer. He looks at me and says, I heard you have a child on the way. And so I said, yes, sir, I do have a child on the way. He, with all sincerity, said, your life is over. It was like, way to be positive, Mr. Sanford, right? But he was dead serious. And it's funny because at that moment, I was upset of like, how could he say something? But I think he was really just disappointing of like, here's someone with so much promise, and I don't know how to really crystallize how disappointed I am in this moment. So I just said, your life is over. Thank God there was another man. His name was Harold Wynn. He was an African-American man. It was really the first exposure I had to someone who was a professional, who knew how to navigate different systems and such. And he said to me when he found out I had a kid, it was a different reaction. He said, Mr. Koen, I heard you have a kid on the way. And I said, yes, I'm sitting here waiting for it, like lay it on me. And he sticks his hands out to me and says, congratulations. Complete paradigm shift. Congratulations, like I'm 18 and I'm about to have a kid. Are you crazy? What do you mean congratulations? He said, I'm not encouraging the behavior. A kid is a blessing. Now step up and handle your business. Just instantly, completely changed my outlook as an 18-year-old. He helped me go to college, God rest his soul, to University of Alabama. It was difficult. I had a kid on campus at the University of Alabama, you can imagine. And from there, I got a little passionate about engagement and activism, got involved in everything. I tried to lead anything that would allow me in there. So I led the NAACP, my fraternity, if, the Kiwanis Club, can I lead, I'll do it. And decided that marketing wasn't the thing for me. That's what I majored in. Maybe there's something else for me. So a professor said, well, you like to organize and argue. Have you ever thought about law school? I said, no. Now, keep in mind, I had a brother who had went to prison, so was very passionate about the law and fair representation. So it was a great match. So I go to law school, end up working at Equal Justice Initiative. Have anyone heard of this place, Equal Justice Initiative? There's actually a movie about this place called Just Mercy with Michael B. Jordan. When I worked there was about 8 lawyers. We were very tiny, very small. And really learned about this concretization of love, right? When you talk about service, and I'm a person of deep faith, when we talk about forgiveness and redemption, it's really tested when you represent people who are on death row, right? Do you really believe in this tenets of Christianity and faith about everyone is worthy of love and have redemptive value? So that was really what tested, I think, my values there. So worked at Equal Justice Initiative, and long story short, served on the board for Urban League in Denver, and always said, Urban League is really a special organization because in many ways, they're like a civil rights organization that is Switzerland. So my typical day starts where, it's a true story, you'll meet with Tom Williams, with the CEO of Children's Hospital. At the end of the day, you're meeting with the organizers of Defund the Police, right? Cinnamon will tell you this is true stories. So you're constantly in this oscillating space of trying to get people to see the other side and different viewpoints. So just a really, really fascinating place to work. I will never forget my first day at the Urban League. There was a guy, and I cannot find him for the life of me. I know he lives in Avondale. He heard there was a new president and CEO coming in town, all right? And the tradition about Cincinnati is you're from out of town. This is a tough town. You gotta grind so you can make it here. If you want to succeed in Cincinnati, just be careful. It's very political. So I thought, okay, here's another one of these speeches that I'm going to get. But he came up to my office and he said immediate to me, what is your vision for the black community? And so I'm like, wow, this is like day one. And this guy's like, what's your vision? I'm like, well, I just got here. I need to do a listening tour and talk to people and, all those things. I don't want to be presumptuous. There's been people who have had a deep history of fighting for justice and equal rights in this community and beyond. I said, and, I just got to build trust. They don't know me. And he looked me in the eye and said, well, while you're building trust, we're still dying. You talk about a sobering moment in the urgency of now. And fast forward to the catalytic work that we're doing right now when we think about COVID, when we think about these ideas of social justice. When COVID hit, immediately we knew about the disparate impact before it was even reported on in African American communities. One of the most frustrating things is there was a presumption that people just didn't want to be safe, right? That they didn't want to wear a mask. We knew that essential workers, over 90% of those were people of color, so they really had no choice but to work. And so the characterization of essential workers as heroes, very different narrative depending on who you talk to. If I don't want to work, I do want to work from home and be safe. So got with our team of what can we do, because we couldn't shut down. So that I have to give all the credit to the 70 employees that we have from Dayton to Cincinnati that said we're going to step up. We launched this campaign called Mask What Matters back in April, protecting our community. And the first thing that we thought people would embrace this, but they were like, are you crazy? The hospitals need masks. Why are you doing a mask drive for the community? And we said, well, somebody has to think about the supply of who's going to the hospital, and this is a behavioral issue, a behavioral change. So even the imagery, I should have probably created a PowerPoint, but the iconography of what we had, showing people of color with masks, saying it's okay, a lot of myth busting and things like that. And then fast forward, as we were trying to do this whole social unrest with George Floyd sort of hit like a pound of bricks. And we were immediately thrusted into what is the saying? I think Cinnamon says leadership rarely comes when it's convenient, right? You got to step up sometimes when you don't want to. I mean, we were really just transforming as an organization about where we wanted to go in the future, and then all of a sudden this social unrest hit. And of course people are looking to the Urban League, that civil rights Switzerland, of saying translate the frustration and the angst to us, and that's an incredible burden. So, I won't talk all because I do want to take some question and answers, but we've been telling folks to do a number of things. So we were responsible for hosting the group that painted the Black Lives Matter mural downtown Cincinnati. And it was an interesting context because it was really community who wanted to do this, right? And they said, hey, we're not sophisticated, we can't negotiate contracts, this is something that we want to do. And of course, the community's response was, we need substance, not symbols. So it was an entire education about the importance of iconography. And when you think about different places in the world, when you think about Germany where swastikas are banned, when you think about South Africa that went through this incredible reconciliation period of why iconography is important. And it has just been one of the most moving experiences that I've had in 9 months. We've had parents that have driven here from Indiana, from Northern Kentucky, to talk about what's embedded in those symbols. And we know there's varying opinions about it, but it was one of the things where we felt we should get behind. And ironically, it was more for an economic justice lens. So we were insistent that we pay the artists, that they were part of a city commission work, and to hear the feedback from those artists about how it was an income generating stream from them in the middle of a pandemic that would have otherwise not been available has been fascinating. And I think it's really important when you talk about symbols. It makes us uncomfortable to talk about things like Black Lives Matter, but we have to really engage in truth-telling. That's something that I learned at Equal Justice Initiative. We often want to skip the truth and just going to the reconciliation. But when you really sit with it and tell the truth about what happened in this city, in Dayton, in this country, the reconciliation is so much easier when you really start to learn. So we've been really beating this drum and telling people to do 3 things in this pandemic. It's really simple. One is to educate. I've learned more. Everyone can learn more. There's so much things, so many films, so many opportunities to just sit and listen. I know it's difficult because Google has a formula where it actually gives us searches by our own biases. But if you search hard enough, you can educate. 2 is investing, being very cognizant about where we invest. We believe that economic justice is deeply intertwined in racial justice. 2 things we do is community leadership and economic justice. So we actually certified the most women-owned businesses in Cincinnati, 1,600 total. If we were a chamber, we'd be the 3rd largest chamber in Cincinnati. So we do that work in Ohio, Kentucky, and West Virginia in partnership with WeBank. So when we talk about social justice, I think economics is a powerful accelerant to change. It goes hand in hand. Political power is nothing without economic power. And then thirdly, and I think it's the most important and underutilized piece, is your actual influence. And to illustrate what I mean by your social capital and influence, I use a hypothetical. I said, what if a quarter of CEOs in America said, we want to end the gender pay gap? We want to devote as much of our influence to end the gender pay gap. We would see more progress from the gender pay gap in a year than we've seen over the past 100, because the power of social capital, because the power of influence. And that doesn't mean you have to be an expert in gender issues, and that doesn't mean that you undermine or speak for women. But what it means is saying, where do I situate myself and use my influence and my social capital, my connections, my backgrounds? I'm learning really quick that if I want to get a lot of things done, I get Procter & Gamble to do it, and other people follow, right? And they understand they have that social capital. So it's saying, when we think about issues of race, it is not enough for the Urban League to beat the drum and say, let's talk about race. But it's a lot more powerful or penetrating if a CEO from a Fortune 500 says it. So I do think even the symbolic gestures have tremendous value. It makes it permissible or says it is tacitly okay to talk about race, which is very uncomfortable. I can't tell you how many CEOs from Denver said, hey, I don't really trust my DEI guy. Can you look at this statement before I put it out, please? Right? Because there's such a tremendous sensitivity around getting it wrong versus saying, let's get through it. So just we tell people to educate, invest, and use your influence. And using your influence can be in our individual families of the world that we want for our children. My kid goes to Cincinnati Country Day School, and we just voted to remove the Indian mascot, and we didn't do it. It was the kids said it's offensive. It's been deeply historical at that school, but we want it to change. A very proud moment being a parent because the kids said, here's the type of world we want to live in. So we challenge people who interface with the Urban League of, it doesn't have to be revolutionary. It's pushing yourself a little bit beyond your comfort zone to say, here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to challenge things within my social circle to say how we should move forward. So that's really all that I got. Really wanted to take some time to take some Q&A from the group of what is it like to be a civil rights organization at Switzerland? How has it been leading in this time? Wanted to take some time to just take some questions. This is a safe space. I know it's being recorded, but we are not recording. We will not put you on our website, I promise. Good deal. Thank you. Sure. How many people work there? Sure. So Molly wants me to talk a little bit about the structure of the Urban League. So we have 90 affiliates across the country, which vary in size. I would say the largest one is in St. Louis that has about revenues of $50 million to tiny ones that have about $500,000. We're about the 8th largest affiliate in the country here, probably more since we've merged now. We have 70 employees, 50 are full-time, about 20 are contractors. So we really have two big divisions. So the first division is really about economic empowerment. So think of everyone from no collar to white collar, right? So the people who say we're economic first responders, I just got laid off my job, I have low skill set, what do you have for me? Well, here are some growing industries that we can get you employed, rapidly reemployed. And this has changed over the last 6 months, as you can imagine. We had a strategic plan, and where we used to do classes and teach pro-social skills, now it's all about rapid reemployment and bringing cohorts together to navigate careers. There's some industries that were popping, and now they're just, they're at a standstill right now. So we do, the workforce development is what we're mainly known for. We've just really emerged in this new market around professional white-collar jobs. When you think about accounting, finance, marketing, there's an appetite in the market for, I want to diversify my company, where do I find talent of color? So we thought we have 90 affiliates across the country. Cincinnati's an incredible place. And we don't want to be a staffing agency, but there's people who do it really well. So we just launched a partnership with Centennial in Northern Kentucky, another firm in Chicago to really create a base where people can find and look for talent. And then lastly, our business development and entrepreneurship business, which is all about certification and taking your business. Those are mainly businesses that are over $1 million. But taking it to the next level. So we work closely with the regional chamber to just increase that pipeline. So that's kind of the economic box. The second box is community leadership. So we just launched, our new board chair is J. Philip Holloman, who was the COO and president of Cintas. And we were blessed that he gave us a $1 million pledge to launch a Center for Social Justice. And what that is about is policing outside of the city of Cincinnati. There's a lot of focus in the city and what police are doing, and we're a lot further along than most people, the collaborative agreement, but the suburbs, really no one's given any effort with there. So that's a unique partnership with the Urban League and the Cochran firm, Ohio, and then we have several centers that are under there and work, but the short version is however we can support community leadership, and whether that's through financial investment, whether that's through organizing, convening, providing technical assistance, all of our history of being a civil rights organization is in that side of the house. Yeah, and so our team, most of the team is in Cincinnati. We have a smaller team in Dayton because we reconstituted that urban league, but it's just a tremendously value-driven team that wakes up every morning figuring out how they can make the world a little better. And then thirdly, we've just really put an emphasis on partnership, right? There's an incredible, I'm also a Habitat for Humanity guy before I worked for United Way. And so what I learned about Habitat is they have hardcore volunteers that will take a bullet for people in Habitat. So we're really trying to get a little of that DNA in the Urban League. Even our Mask What Matters campaigns is largely driven by community volunteers who want to go out in the streets. So those are kind of the three prongs. So the question was, how do we aid young people who want to get involved and don't necessarily know where to start? So we actually have we have several centers within the Urban League. On that community leadership prong, we have the Community Police Partnering Center and the Center for Social Justice. We also house a Small Business Development Center. So within the Community Police Partnering Center, we have youth councils. That is a delegation of young folks from all over the city that really, we put a little money behind it. They ideate and say, what do we think solutions that are needed for our community? If they want to talk to the police chief in their neighborhood, we say, okay, great, we'll facilitate it. We will provide the technical support. You drive all the solutions. And it's really been fascinating to see high school students step up. When I think about our mass campaign, the most donations that we've got by, not necessarily by the quantity, that's been Procter & Gamble, but by volunteers have been all of these student-led groups that have said, I'm making masks, can I drop them off to the Urban League? It's really been fascinating. Or to see, hey, there's a mural, can we help with cleanup? What can we do? The average donation for the mural was about $3. And those were mainly driven by high school and young students. So trying to we take interns, we try to plug them into that youth council any way that they want to engage. Other questions? Back here.
So the question you got on your first date wasn't fair to you then, but it is fair.
You know, the vision is really simple, to create a community where all people thrive, including Black people, right? We're not asking for anything extra, but a place where a Cincinnati, a Dayton, where people feel like they belong, that they are safe, that they are not stigmatized, that we can talk about these uncomfortable issues around race and bias. My wife always jokes, because we live in Kenwood, and we always pose the hypothetical, would people be welcoming if there were 200 of Eddies moving in their community? Would that be a different reception? And we shouldn't have to pose that question or even grapple with it as something that is imaginative in our brains, or does it exist in reality? So really to create the kind of culture where that exists. And I think to move from esoteric to actually tangible things, we host the convenings, and we are behind the policies that will make a more just Cincinnati. What I love about working with partners like Cincinnati Works and working with the city is we're unique in that we don't just offer programs. We know you cannot program your way out of poverty, right? Well-meaning, you think about the most awful times in our history, a lot of our nonprofits were here, and their hands were tied because they didn't have an advocacy arm. So they had to really only stick with the safe things that were not uncomfortable to talk about. So as the Urban League, I think our civil rights background, it's incumbent of us to talk about policy, to talk about redlining and school choice and things like that, and options for people.
You mentioned that one of the things you try to do with individuals that want to help you and assist you is challenge them. How do you deal with individuals that sometimes don't necessarily want to be challenged, and individuals that aren't receptive to education, aren't receptive to what your mission is, in terms of trying to
Sure. I mean, and that's kind of the dark side of this work, right? It's as soon as the mural went up, I mean, we received several hate messages. There were threats. There were calls to my personal cell. That's just part of it. We feel like there's an entire body of organizations that focus on education and sort of converting the unwilling. We're in the business of truth telling, of saying once they've been converted, here's an organization you can plug into. Now, of course, there are panels and things that we sit on and talk about race and such. But I think we just need a culture of honesty where people feel safe to say, I don't really understand what you're talking about. Of what do you mean by Black Lives Matter? I don't get it, right? To be able to have real and trusting friendships to say that without being afraid that they're going to be on the news and quote it. And your whole career is going to be destroyed, right, for asking a question. And I do have those. I went to a very conservative law school. And it's been really eye-opening, but we have to have the authentic relationships. And I think, ironically, we live in a place where there's a ton of confirmation bias right now. We have all this information, but we're more divisive as ever. It's just like, here's the news, here's the information that confirms what I want to cement in my own beliefs. So it just drives that division more and more. So there's not a lot of spaces, really, that's there. Strategically, because there's so many people who are popping up and saying they're DEI experts, which is diversity, equity, and inclusion experts, we just said, well, we're not going to be in that space, but we encourage it. We think it's a necessary conversation, whether it's the chamber doing it or Greater Cincinnati Foundation or individual consultants, so people can plug in where they are on that journey, right? I think there's definitely a perception that I can't say anything about race because I'm not an expert. And we see these horror stories, where someone says something wrong and then they're just blasted all over the place. And so even I can speak for our organization. We talk about the idea of grace, of taking people where they are and explaining our work if they have a genuine question. Now, there are those who just don't, that they disagree vehemently with what you're doing. They think that somehow saying something black, is separatist or something. And it's quite the contrary. So we just stay steadfast on our mission. Target black folks. We help folks that aren't black as well, but that's who we target, and we think it's necessary, and go from there. But I think there's so much education. Even Netflix, for God's sake, has like a Black Lives Matter series where it's just things that I didn't know, as a black man in America that I've learned about, where you can kind of learn at the comfort of your own home of let me see the other side, even if I don't agree, but let me digest the information. Sure. Thank you. Sure. Yeah. Wow, that was thank you. So the first question was, the common trope around not saying Black Lives Matter, but all lives matter. Of when we get that, I think the best analogy is akin to if you're in a neighborhood and you have 10 houses and there's one on fire. Of course, all the houses are important. They need to not burn down, but there's one. By education outcomes, 90% of the kids who are born in poverty in Avondale. And we use these proxies. It's very strange, even in philanthropy, right, where we really mean race, but we don't call it that, right? We say lower income. We say place-based philanthropy, right? But there's just, and again, it ties into that truth and reconciliation of our discomfort of talking about race. Now, from the corporate context, I believe we just really screwed up how we talked about diversity in the 80s, right? It was just like everything that's not white, that's diversity, that's the goal, right? Until really taking time to explain, the things. We don't even like saying racism because it's not specific enough. We talk about restrictive covenants, of white flight, of people leaving neighborhoods to say they don't want to be educated around Black children. Those are very real things that we have to reconcile with if we want to keep a Cincinnati or to build a Cincinnati where we all belong. So it's simply that. It's just, Black Lives Matter. It's not saying that Black lives are superior. It's not saying that, you should get a handout. It's just saying you should engage in the same liberties and protections as everyone else. I tell people when I was 9 years old, that was the first time that I had guns pulled out on me by a police officer. And I also have people in my family who are police officers, right? So we have to really reconcile in this moment. And it's really an interesting and fascinating time to be alive right now. I liken it to when you've had a covenant with the country that has said, okay, now Plessy v. Ferguson, now Brown versus Board, you're equal. Now we're going to do the Civil Rights Act, you're equal. And we see that in practice, it doesn't coming. So when you see a lot of people embracing social action right now, it's kind of like you're reticent to be happy because you've been injured so much, you're just waiting for it. It's going to go back to normal. So it's a very complex relationship because not all Black people thought it was a good idea to put a Black Lives Matter mural in front of City Hall. Some of them said they don't deserve that. That's disrespectful. Some said they should see it as a reminder of the disparities that they have to face every day. So varying opinions about it. But while we say it, it's because if we really want to create a Cincinnati where everyone belongs, not that we give quote unquote handouts, but an opportunity of equity, then we have to talk about issues of race and we have to move past that discomfort. So that's the first one. The second one around what can business owners do? We get this question a lot, and we go back to those three things that invest, educate, and influence. Influence being the key piece. As an organization that certifies women and minority-owned businesses, we always say we're not asking for you to set aside. If you want to, that's great. But we're asking for the opportunity of looking at your vendors and contractors to say, let me make sure that I give someone a chance. And two, of just using, whether you're a manager, an executive, or a CEO, of when you are at a table and you are cognizant and know about these structural issues, that you use your voice. And you don't have to sound like, an expert on race, of just saying, can we consider the implications of XYZ's decision? And when you do it, you tacitly give other people permission to do it who have been reticent, that have said, well, I'm thinking this, but I'm not going to say it. So even when I go in rooms sometimes with Michael Fisher, poor guy, I bully him all the time. It's like, Michael, I need you to say this because I'll say it, but it is more penetrating if you say it. He says, oh my gosh, you really, but it's really true. It's powerful of using, not just because he's white, because he runs a multi-million-dollar hospital, and it's more penetrating. So that's it. It sounds really simple, but I think it's really powerful. There's a reason why we see everyone releasing statements about Black Lives Matter. The Meineke station on the corner didn't just come up and say, yeah, let me do this, right? We saw the big boys doing it. We saw the larger corporations doing it, and it tacitly gave permission to other people to do it as well because of that social capital and that influence. All right. Yep. Yeah, about Cincinnati. There's a lot of myths about it was super political and that it was closed. That has not been my experience here. Quite the contrary. I think there's a coalition of the willing, from business to community, that want to see this place thrive in a way. There are people who are just appalled, who don't look like me, about poverty and who have been working diligently to do it. So I've been really impressed with the collaboration and just the business sector, the political sector, community that have come together really around the cause of saying, this isn't right, what can we do, how can we lean in? Which was not what I heard when I got here. It's like, you're not from Cincinnati, you can't tell what high school you went to, forget about it, it's over. And that's not been my experience. And I will not just say everything has been cheesy. The one hang up that I notice is when people give you their phone numbers, they don't give you the area code sometimes. So they're assuming it's 513, so that was a little different. But it's been great, and we moved here during, what is the festival, is it Blink? Yeah, so we're like, this is awesome. Is this how festivals are in Cincinnati every week? So that was a good time to move here as well, to bring my family and children. So it's been incredible. Okay, thank you. I could stay here all day. I know you got a meeting to do. Thank you so much.
It's a wonderful presentation, a lot to think about. And one of the things that's really clear is that the Urban League really wants people to thrive in our community. And I would say the same about Rotary. We want people to thrive. And I think every organization that is good-hearted and going after this picks areas of service to do that. And we are, as you know, very service-oriented. In honor of you coming to speak today, one of the things we'd like to do is make a donation to the End Polio Now campaign, a global campaign that we've been involved with since 1988 and have almost eradicated that disease. I say that as we all are fighting another disease right now. And the other thing, as you talked, Eddie, you really talk about opening opportunities for people, opening opportunities for people in the community. You're really after economic empowerment. One of the things that we're after is growing local economies. We want to see people have opportunities. And with that in mind, actually our theme this year is Rotary Opens Opportunities. I'd like to give you a pin that we have to symbolize that. So, thank you very much. So one of the things I'll just take a minute to say is this. You can see from having Eddie Koen here today, we take things very seriously in a good way in our community in terms of community service, in terms of business and enterprise. We want to see Cincinnati flourish. We have really strong speakers that we learn from, and Eddie, you really taught us in a good way a lot of things today, a lot of things to reflect upon. So thank you again for coming, and now everyone have a good weekend. I hope to see you next Thursday. Meeting adjourned.